Monday night is Wise Guys Night, and we are here. The number one BYU Sports live stream talk show in the entire world, presented by Brady Plus. And more on Brady Plus in just a moment. Good to be back.
Yes, it's awesome here on a Monday night. Make sure you follow us on YouTube. We're going to put the link in the chat. Please hit the subscribe button because it's free. And we're also live on Facebook, Twitch, ysguys.com. And make sure you follow us at ysguys.com, ysguys.com. If you subscribe there, you're going to get our weekly email with all the highlights from the show, all of our past interviews. And that is also free. So we're just asking you to do all this free stuff, right, Dave?
Hey, the live stream's exploding, which is awesome. Already out of the gate, Philippines, St. George, Ridgecrest, California, Farmington, Utah, New Mexico, and on and on. So please, tonight, let us know where you're watching us from. And again, that ysguys.com is sitting there waiting for you. You click the subscribe button, you get our weekly email, and you're in business.
And I just learned something about John Crowder. He's on every week, and he goes, Blaine, FYI, Davis Dart here, class of 1965.
Go Darts.
The Darts, all of my kids are Davis high grads. So
we got an awesome show tonight. Kansas City Chiefs head coach Andy Reid's going to be with us in just a couple of minutes. He's going to answer your questions. He's also going to answer some questions from some of our previous guests.
Yeah, which is going to be really, really fun. And thanks for doing the work on that, Dave. Dave sent out some things to some of our friends, and wow. Hey, how about Duff Tittle and Brett Pine are going to be on, the authors of the new book, 100 Years of BYU Football. They're going to join us here in studio. We're going to ask them what was harder, deciding what to include or what to leave out, because there's so much in 100 years of football.
Hey, and you know what? Perry from Mattawa, Illinois, a Chicago suburb, is in. That's the first time we've had a Chicago suburb. Yeah. Let's not talk about the Cubs. It's a long summer. Let's hope they turn it around. But it's great to have Chicago here with us tonight. By the way, basketball, there's so much news all the time now. Summer workouts actually began today. They just finished up. The Cougars add a new assistant coach. They get two big pieces to the roster, and they've got an opponent and a date for opening night for Kevin Young. So all of that's coming up. Beaumont, Texas. Hello, Olympia, Washington. Good to have you with us.
Yeah.
And so that's the show tonight, along with a bunch of other stuff. But football, hoops, a new book. I tell you what, that basketball stuff's wild.
Oh,
There's so
my
much
goodness.
stuff going
Everybody's
on.
talking about basketball. As football quietly has been getting ready, by the way.
Yeah, I think they're going to be just fine. Anchorage, Alaska, in with us. Great to have you here. Andy Reid's coming up here in just a couple of moments. Let's take a second and talk about our historic title sponsor, Brady Plus. And Travis Brady is the president of Brady Plus. Used to be Brady Industries. Now, the Brady name is synonymous in BYU Sports. It's been that way now for a couple of decades.
Yeah.
It's going to continue to be that way, and especially on BYU TV. But tonight, they have adopted us in, and Brady Plus is part of the Wise Guys. And you might ask yourself, because we have on occasion, because we've read, I've got all the readers memorized from all these years about support from Brady Industries, but this is what Brady Plus is and does, and one of the reasons why we're so excited to have them as a partner.
Yeah, so first of all, the company's acquired or merged over 65 independent businesses to create the largest integrated provider of cleaning, food service, packaging supplies in the United States. And I look, because they've been such a big part of what we've done over the years. Everywhere I go, hotels, schools, everywhere, I see the Brady logo and I recognize that that's Travis and his group, and it's phenomenal. And they're everywhere in our lives.
Brady Plus has over 150 distribution facilities across the country and 6,000 employees.
Yeah, and among the products that Brady Plus provides are general cleaners, disinfectants, cleaning tools, power equipment, commercial kitchen appliances, and dishwashing machines. Everything from paper towels and hand sanitizers, cutlery, boxes, tapes, you name it, Brady makes it. And they're proliferated everywhere in the hotels in the state of Nevada, here in Utah, in churches, in schools. They're a big presence.
Hey, they're at Disneyland.
Yes, they are.
You can find the Brady Plus brand. Restaurants, resorts, schools, universities, as you mentioned, companies like Nike, Disney, Whole Foods, even the Pentagon.
That's right.
So that makes us, now we're on the inside of the Pentagon.
Yes, we are.
Feels like we should. They do not provide tanks. That's where they draw the line.
Did they do the White House? Because our first guest was just in the White House the other day.
Haven't seen that they've been in the White House.
Okay.
But we will ask Andy if he saw any of their logos on there. And starting tonight, you can find the Brady Plus brand on the Wise Guys right over here to my left and down on our screen. And we're going places with them. We couldn't be happier.
Yeah, I read a Facebook comment from David Simmons about the Wise Guys, and he says, I haven't missed a broadcast since the inception of this show, and it's a very amazing experience to be able to send in your questions and have them answered immediately. BYU fans from all over the world are catching on, and it's exciting to watch. And you know what Brady Plus and Travis does for us is allows us to continue to do this and grow this so that we can get a bigger and bigger audience around the world. This is a global audience, and we're happy to have all of you in with us.
So give Brady Plus a high five. And also on our live stream tonight, we'll take your questions for Coach Reid. And let us know where you're taking this in from. I like that David Simmons comment because that's exactly what we set out to do. Be a link to BYU alumni all over the world on a live stream, which allows you to say, hey, Blaine, what's going on with the fullback situation? And allows you to answer in real time. And nobody gets that. Most people aren't set up to do that. And when we have folks from Chile and Panama and the Philippines and England and Germany and Australia and Provo, we can do all that.
And we can bring you up-to-date stuff. Hey, Fahu Tahi, former Minnesota Viking that plowed the road for Adrian Peterson. I ran into him at the gym today. He's doing great. So talking about fullbacks, there's one of the greats of all time at BYU and a former NFL guy, had some trouble with CTE. Yeah. And he's got it all under control, and life is good for him. And he said to say hello to everybody tonight.
That's awesome. Let's jump into some football news. Tons of basketball coming up in just a bit, but football will tee up things for Coach Reid. Scheduling news, it's finally out.
Yes.
4 games where BYU is playing August 31st, Southern Illinois. That's at 6 Mountain Time, ESPN Plus. Game day at 4 Mountain Time on BYU TV.
Yeah, we'll be there September 6th, Friday night, BYU at SMU, 5 p.m. Mountain, ESPN 2 game. Game days at 3 Mountain on BYU TV.
Wyoming, September 14th. That's a 7 o'clock Mountain Time. CBS Sports Network. Game days at 5 on BYU TV.
And then October 18th, the last one we actually have scheduled details on. That's a Friday. Oklahoma State at BYU. That'll be a fun one. 8:15 p.m. on ESPN, the mothership. Game day for us will be at 6 p.m. Mountain on BYU TV all over the world.
Might be a little chilly, getting close to Halloween. That's going to be awesome.
That's right.
Big 12 Media Day is coming up July 9th and 10th in Vegas. The team reports on the 30th of July. You know what that is? 8 weeks from tomorrow.
It's crazy. High school camp started today for the BYU football team. They get to look at next year's crop, and the crop after that is they're on campus competing. Camp reports on July 30th. That's crazy. Our AFR season premiere, by the way, July 30th on BYU TV, 8 weeks from tomorrow.
That's even more crazy.
We'll start doing after further review.
Over the weekend, the Big 12 announced it was distributing a record $470 million to the 14 member schools this past year. BYU and the 3 non-P5s that came in, they're going to get $18 million each. Then next year, they get a full cut with everybody else. It's the way we're going. It's the new deal. Yeah. And there seems to be plenty of money. We're talking about paying players and this and that. It was like, well, there's no shortage of money. And I wrote about it in the Deseret News today, Deseret.com. It's a old school thinking's out the window. It's a paradigm shift.
Right.
You got to pay to play. And we're going to play to pay, right? And players are going to get paid.
And we've had multiple people on, the NIL folks and Tom Holman and everybody, and we've talked about BYU and the fact that they're going to compete in paying players, but they're going to do it in a different way where they're also going to mentor players, and they're going to give them networks, and they're going to help them start companies, and they're going to set them up so that they have residual income and a skill for the rest of their life after football or basketball or whatever sport it is all over. I think it's great, their approach.
Here's a sign of the times. The NCAA Rules Committee meeting this week to discuss permitting BYU and other schools to display corporate logos on the field and patches on the jerseys. Is that a good idea? Brady Plus can be right there in the end zone.
There's Brady Plus right behind you, Dave, is Brady Plus for us.
Yeah. I think right now it's like, hey, since they have to pay, they're just going to try to market every single spot to make money so they can do it.
Yeah, it is the sign of the times. Things are changing, and we hope at some point there's some fences put around it. You know, as we talked to Danny Ainge, and Danny was mentioning, there's more restrictions in the NBA and in the NFL and Major League Baseball than there are in college sports right now.
Yeah.
That's crazy to think.
That is crazy. Glenn from the Philippines, our game's going to be broadcast on BYU TV? No. They're going to be on ESPN Plus or Fox or FS1. that's how this is going to go moving forward.
Yep.
We'll get the preseason games in basketball, like when they play Westminster.
Right, we'll get some of those.
But the mothership now is ESPN.
Yeah, typically Dave and I will get on ESPN Plus, not on BYU TV, maybe 14 or 15 preseason games. And then the word is that this year, we wouldn't get Kansas coming in to play BYU because that would be on ESPN. But any ESPN Plus, there's a good chance Dave and I will be bringing those to you, but we'll be bringing them to you on ESPN Plus on the Big 12 Network.
Kansas City Chiefs mandatory mini camp is coming up June 11th. Training camp mid-July, and the season opener's Thursday, September 5th against the Ravens on NBC. With that, it's our pleasure to bring in our first guest tonight. It's a former Cougar, 3-time Super Bowl winning head coach with the Chiefs. Not only does he practice what he preaches both on and off the field, he's made the NFL more fun to watch and never hesitates to rep the Y. Please say hello to the legendary Andy Reid, longtime friend of Blaine's and a coach here, and we just love Andy Reid. Hey, Coach, good evening.
Good evening. How are you guys? You sound great, by the way.
Have you been on a little bit, listening to Dave and I just go crazy and do our stuff?
I have. Blaine, you're doing well, man.
I thank you, brother.
Thank you, Coach. Hey, what's a Monday like for you? What's a typical Monday in June for Andy Reid?
Well, we're in our off-season program, so we actually gave the players today off. They come back in for a four day stretch here these next 4 days. So we were just prepping for training camp. We try to get everything done before we leave for a vacation here in a couple weeks.
You know, Andy, you guys were in the White House this last weekend, and you and I were texting. I was making sure you were all set for tonight, and you texted me and sent a picture, and I said to Brenda, I'm like, Andy's my only friend that's ever actually took the time to text me from the White House. and Brenda was in the White House last year with our daughter Libby, who's in Moulin Rouge, and she didn't text me. But you took the time to text me. I'm grateful for that.
That's next level.
And were you bored while you were there? It was like you were texting me.
Well, I wasn't bored. I just talked to the president actually, and he was doing well, and so I want to make sure you were caught up on all that.
Hey, one of the questions, and we'll ask it early as our live streamers are asking questions tonight, but it's the third time you've had the tour. Did you learn anything different on this tour, or was it just the same stuff?
Yeah, Dave, listen, it was really the second time. The first time COVID took a crash on our trip there. But the last 2 years, we've been able to go, and it's something. You know, you just stand there and you're standing next to the President of the United States, the strongest country in the world, and it amazes me every time I think about it. And when you're standing there and it's real, it's surreal is what it is. Yeah. But what an honor it was to go.
All right, Coach, we've asked the Wise Guys audience to come up with some questions. You ready?
Fire away.
These can go from one side of the hemisphere to the next really quick.
No, and the fun part about this show is people get to be on the live stream and they can just shoot Dave and I questions like in the middle of the show, and we try to handle them. It's just such a casual, fun format, long format. And so Dave mined some of these. And we also, I mentioned to you on text that we got some of your old friends to send us some questions too.
Yeah,
so
everybody's here tonight.
Yeah.
Let's start with Mason Stevens, Coach. What leadership principles have you seen over your successful years of coaching to be the most effective for your players, especially in tough situations?
Yeah, listen, I think you go back and you just say honesty is what the players want. It's the right thing to do. You shoot from the heart there, and you tell the guys whether it's good or bad. You teach, and we know we're here to do that. And in this job, that's the better teacher you are, the better coach you're going to be. And so, and the more honest you are, the more the players are going to appreciate you. And so I try to start there, and then I'm demanding, but I'm not demeaning, and I'm going to try to be honest with you as we go through that, positive and honest.
You know, Andy, you and I have talked about this in private before, but you know, a lot of who you are started with your time here at BYU as a graduate assistant. I was lucky I got to get coached by for a little bit here when you were here with Mike Holmgren, our dear friend. Like, is there any one or two or maybe even three people that have really influenced your style and who you are that date all the way back to this BYU time?
Blaine, I was so lucky to have great coaches all the way up through from junior high school, Little League, Babe Ruth League, all of that, all the way up through to high school, to college, junior college to college, and then I've had some great mentors in the NFL. Mike Holmgren being the primary one, the National Football League, but Coach Lavelle Edwards was phenomenal to learn from. I felt like he did it the right way. He handled all of us the right way. He didn't care if you're a great player or if you're, a backup. He was going to treat you great. And then when I left there, I mean, it's crazy, but he stayed in touch with me every week. He'd reach out and kind of give me the business, and we'd talk. And so, and we continued that up to his passing. I started calling him, but it worked out okay. He had great counsel for me at this level and when I was at the college level.
Here's a question from Mikhail Condi. Coach, what's the number one rule you have for your players?
Yeah, I tell you, I've got a couple rules, but work hard, be on time, and try to be the best person you can possibly be. And we'll give you the avenue to attempt all those things.
Rich Risk 2123 said, hey, did you ever consider trading for Zach Wilson during the offseason? And then he also said, hey, and by the way, thanks for sticking up for Harrison Butker. That was a class all the way. So that's from Rich Risk 2123. Any thought about Zach Wilson in the offseason, or were you guys already set at quarterback?
Listen, I think he's a heck of a player, but we didn't have the funds nor the number of draft picks to get all of that done. We needed every draft pick we had just to fill in the blanks. You try to make the salary cap thing work, and there's a little bit of a challenge there. But I think he's a heck of a player, and I'm glad he gets a restart here.
With the Harrison Butker thing, I think sometimes you might wake up and there's a curveball every day from someone in some way, and then you have to decide how you're going to be. Do you go back to that earlier response you had where you just stay the same and then deal with it the exact same way, whether it's good or bad?
Dave, I'm lucky to know these guys personally. Yeah. So I know Harrison Butker. I know what a fine person he is, and I think he has a belief, and as we all do, and we're all a little different. Yeah. But that's what makes this world go around, and but if you really reach down into the core of him, he's a fine person, and so whether you agree with him or disagree with him, there's a core there that is trying to make people around him better, including himself.
Here's a question from BYU athletic director and former teammate Tom Holmoe. Andy, do you remember selling hot dogs on the weekends at San Francisco State to raise money for football?
I remember it very well.
What's up with that?
So at San Francisco State, Tom was actually playing for the 49ers at that time. And at San Francisco State, we sold hot dogs every Tuesday and Thursday just to make money to support the players during training camp and buy their food for them and so on. So it was interesting, though. That was a unique campus, a variety of different people there, which was enjoyable. But Tom had an opportunity to witness it. He was kind of gray shirting there at the 49ers on the practice squad. And so on games that they would travel, he was able to come up and sit in the booth with me at San Francisco State. And I always thought he would have been a great coach. And he ended up doing that, although he really wanted to be an athletic director. So he eventually got what he wanted, and he's great at that. So but I appreciate our friendship, and he did see San Francisco State firsthand.
There was a lot of back and forth. Like you were there with Vic Rowan, right, back in the old days.
I was, yes.
Who sent Mike Holmgren over to us, and he and Lavelle were good friends, and then you went and spent some time there. So Mike was there, you were there, and then there's that great tie between Lavelle and the San Francisco 49ers, and the friendships that he had with the coaching staff there. That was a unique relationship back in those days, and kind of paved the way for a lot of coaches, right?
It did, Blaine. I'll tell you, Coach had influence on all the jobs I've had. I mean, which is crazy. You know, as parents, we tell our kids, hey, you go to a university that has a name. It will help. It sets forward before a word ever comes out of your mouth. It represents you, and so BYU did that. Coach Edwards did that. So when I went to Northern Arizona, he knew Larry Quintera. They were friends. I went to UTEP, and he knew Bob Stoll and told me to go there. He made the calls for both of those schools. The first calls came from Coach Edwards. And then I went from there to Missouri, and it was Bob Stoll taking me there. And then I go from there to Green Bay, and he tutored Mike Holmgren. And so, and then I get an opportunity to be a head football coach, and you know, and he helped with that, you know, with the Eagles. Just his reputation and the university's reputation helped me get my foot in the door there. So it's his influence has really guided me through this whole thing.
And his influence helped you and a lot of others. But we look at Lavelle's coaching tree, and then we look at Mike's coaching tree, and we look at your coaching tree. It's
a lot of big trees.
That's your coaching tree now is unbelievable. Did you ever imagine that at this point in your career, that all of these folks that you've had influence over would have such an impact on the game in such a broad respect?
No, I don't think you think of that. You know, you're not looking back. You're probably learning from the past, but you're moving forward and in this thing. And every day you've got to work your tail off to the fullest. So there's not a whole lot of looking back on it and going, man. But I do respect all those guys and the job in which they've done. I didn't realize this, Blaine. I had to give a talk to the offensive line coaches in the league a couple weeks back, and I went back and my assistant put together this tree of coaches. I mean, there were like 13 guys in this tree, and I had no idea that it was that many. And these were coaches. These were guys that are now head coaches or have been head coaches in the National Football League that I was lucky enough to work with. So it's amazing how that thing grows. Mike Holmgren had 7 or 8 guys that came off of his tree that became head coaches, and I thought at the time, and now that I've been a head coach for a lot of years here, 25 years, going on 26, I felt like Mike Holmgren, nobody did it better than he did at this level, and I still feel that way today. I mean, he was an amazing head football coach, and I think he deserves to be in the Hall of Fame and should be in the Hall of Fame.
Hey, if you set all that up like Amway, all those coaches would be paying you for every win that they get.
Right. If it
and
was
every
a
job
multi-level
they get.
marketing,
Just keep coming back. Well, all three of you guys would be a sitting sweet. You mentioned the offensive line coaches a moment ago. There's an offensive lineman in your group, Kingsley Suamataia. One of our live streamers wants to know, are we going to see him on the field in September?
I'll tell you, he keeps doing good. He will be. You know, he's a great kid. He's working his tail off right now, trying to get used to all of this. It's like learning French in a couple of days. So the practice feels like the MTC. It can be rough at times. So he's working through all of that and really doing a nice job. I appreciate his effort, and he's taking positive steps every day.
Great.
Yeah, and physically, I know you drafted him because physically he has all the skills you need to be good if he can grind and put it all together, right, Coach? Yeah,
he's a hard worker, which I appreciate. That's what he's doing so far, this is just the beginning of it. We're in shorts right now with a helmet on, and that's about it. And that's not how you play this game. We can't run the ball because of the contact rules. So everything's a passing game right now. But once we get into training camp and it's hot, it's humid, and it tests you mentally and physically, that's when he'll get his most growth.
Former Cougar, 3-time Super Bowl head coach, Kansas City Chiefs Andy Reid on the Wise Guys, presented by Brady Plus, answering questions from our live stream and former guests. This one's from former NBA world champion Danny Ainge. He said, Coach, how important is the coach/GM relationship to your success and your job enjoyment, and who makes the final call on draft and roster cuts? That from Danny Ainge.
Yeah, that sounds like a general manager.
Yeah, it does, doesn't it?
Yeah. A great three-point shooting general manager, too. So, what a heck of a player. He could have played all 3 professional sports if he wanted to.
Yeah.
And actually played 2. But, so I think it's huge. My general manager here now is Brett Veach, and I actually snagged Brett right out of the University of Delaware and brought him on board as my administrative assistant. And those guys have an opportunity as administrative assistant. At the time, I was working as general manager and head coach, and the guys have an opportunity to either go the personnel route or the coaching route. He chose the personnel route, and he really had a knack for that. Deshaun Jackson, LaShawn McCoy, those were guys that he put his stamp on, and Cox, who just retired with the Eagles, that was another Brett Veach guy. And then he comes here, and he's the only guy I brought from our personnel department here, and he jumps in there and really is instrumental in bringing Pat Mahomes here. So how important is that? I mean, that kind of says it all right there. We know how important the quarterback is to any team, really at any level. But John Dorsey was the general manager at the time, but Brett was the one who went out and watched Pat play and scouted that area and came back and said, hey, this guy's the best guy I've ever seen. And he was right. And so I've got a ton of trust in him, which Danny, I know, knows is so important. And he has trust in me, which is important. And I don't ever question his decisions. He makes the final personnel decisions. He gets us all involved, all the coaches involved. But when it's all said and done, he makes a decision, and he has done a phenomenal job with that.
Another former guest and good friend of all of ours, our CEO of Deseret Books, Sherry Dew, asks, what have you learned about motivating highly skilled players who also have competing egos?
Yeah, these guys, they're well paid, and they've got egos. But we talk about checking those at the door, coming in, and let's unite. Let's try to become one the best way we possibly can. And I found that through hard work, that's the best way to do it. These guys really just want from the coach. And I noticed this when I was at Green Bay with Brett Favre and Reggie White, who arguably are the 2 best at their position who have played the game at this level. And all they wanted was one more thing to be even greater than what they already were. And so as a coach, that's what you try to present. So we try to do that as coaches here. We try to give you one more thing. We're going to bust our tail for you and give you one more thing to help you even be greater than you already are, whether it's by scheme or whether it's by coaching a fundamental that we can help you improve your game on. So that's how we go about it. The guys believe in that. They've bought in. That's the culture. And they help each other. And that's where you see it work. When players are helping players, that's where you see this thing work. And we have guys that you see these young guys coming in like Kingsley, and here are the veteran players, the Creeds and the Trey Smiths. These guys are helping him become even better than what he is now and make his game better so he can make a living, yes, but also help us win championships.
Mariah Hudgens, one of the newest members of the women's basketball team, who was on the show last week and is a Swiftie, we said, hey, Coach Reid's coming on. What do you want us to ask? She goes, Coach Reid, how do you feel the Taylor Swift fans impacted the NFL and the Chiefs last season?
Mariah, how awesome is that, man? And here she is. She brings a whole nother group of young ladies and older ladies to be interested in this sport. And it's a great sport. I mean, it's great for everybody. Flag football right now is going crazy. Girls flag football is going crazy. And I love that part. There's so many great lessons you can learn about life in this sport, and it's fun to play. So I would tell you, Taylor, she's a sweetheart now. She came in, she made all the, Blaine, you know this, how this works. She made all the offensive linemen homemade Pop-Tarts.
I heard, yeah.
She won over the group right there. And so it's kind of neat to see her where she doesn't have to be it.
Yeah.
She can sit back. I think she's enjoying that, sitting back and being able to escape from being Taylor Swift for a minute and just being a fan. And she's all in.
Did Tammy get much of a chance to get to know her and spend some time with her this last season?
You know what, Blaine? We've known her since she was a little girl. And funny story, when Trav met her, she goes, you know, I know your coach and his wife. And he goes, what coach? And she goes, Coach Reid. And he kind of went, oh, great. You know, one of those deals. But her father is a Eagles fan. So I met him back when he was with the Eagles. He had played football, I believe, at Delaware. And so he understands the game and gets all of that and that goes into it. So I had met Taylor back when I was in Philadelphia.
That's awesome. And Tammy's so good about making everybody feel welcome. I'm sure Taylor, as a big star, felt like she was just part of the family because that's how Tammy does things, right? She's the best at it.
Yeah, Tam talks to her dad all the time. She's talked to him for years, and as you just said it, she's everybody's best friend and everybody's mother, grandmother.
Yes.
You know, however you look at it. So.
All right, we got another one.
Yeah, from Randy Eves, says post winning the Super Bowl this year, what's the one more thing you want to do professional before retiring? Is there one big thing you're like, I've got to do this. I would really like to do this before I'm done.
Yeah, listen, I've been lucky enough to be involved in everything. You know, all the major events here. The one that sits before us right now is a nice challenge, and that's to win potentially another Super Bowl, or at least prepare ourselves to be able to do that. And so that's where our energy is going right now. That's something that's never been done in the National Football League. So how big is that challenge? Well, it's huge. It's hard to win one, let alone two in a row, and let alone three. And that's why it's never happened. But what a great challenge that is. And still knowing that you've got to kind of stick with those fundamentals, and that whole one day at a time cliche from coaches is very true.
1984 Holiday Bowl MVP Robbie Bosco wants to know, Coach, how many nuggets did you have to eat in your commercial?
I'm going to tell you what, there were a lot of nuggets. Thank goodness they were good ones. They give you a spit bucket, which kind of sounds gross. It kind of is gross. But I said I wasn't going to use the spit bucket, but after about the 100th nuggie, you're ready for that spit bucket, you know.
Oh, that's fine. Robbie's like, that's what he wants to ask. I'm like, hey, don't you think a really good friend, Andy, like Robbie, and when he goes down the Holiday Bowl, a good friend would have stayed out longer and let me play the rest of the game. That's what I think about Robbie. Robbie and I always say this about Andy. So you guys want to know something about Andy? The best arm I've ever seen. Like, Steve Young does not compare to Andy Reid in his prime throwing the football. When he used to throw drills with us and stuff, he's got a gun, Patrick Mahomes does not have a better arm than Andy Reid in his prime. Patrick, I don't know, he might be more accurate or read defenses better, but he doesn't throw it better than Andy could throw. Do you still spin it, Coach, or have you not thrown it much anymore?
I've got some calcium deposits on the shoulders that kind of hold me back. I was able to throw out the first pitch at the Royals game over here beginning of the season, but that was about as far as I could get that son of a gun.
We saw that pitch. Nice job.
Yeah.
You got it in there.
Yeah, age is catching up with all of us. It's not good. Although Steve, did you see Steve threw a touchdown pass in the alumni game here at BYU?
He's amazing. He's amazing.
Yeah, he's got a question for you here in just a sec.
Yeah.
That you're going to love. Dan Gerber, who's going to introduce you at your eventual Hall of Fame induction ceremony? Have you decided?
Oh, I haven't. I haven't even thought about that. So
who do you think Tammy would have introduce you? Who do you think she would say?
Oh, that's a good question. It might be her. You never know.
Could be, right?
Yeah, could be.
Yeah. No better candidate.
Yeah. And it's funny, we talk about that, and it's almost like, oh, can you really talk about that? We all know that that's an eventuality at this point. You can't have the record that you have and not be there in the Hall of Fame. And you mentioned Mike Holmgren, who we all know deserves to be in there as well. So we're going to be the first to congratulate you because we know you're going to be in there. We know you're going to be in there.
Yeah. You just don't think about those things when you're in it. It's not superstitious or anything else. You're just kind of, it's like being in a washing machine going around and around, man. It's you got to stay in the moment right now. So
yeah, exactly. Hey, Dallin Smith asked a good question that relates back to BYU. What would your pitch be to a college athlete to come to BYU?
Yeah, listen, I'm probably the wrong guy to ask that to because I bleed blue, man. I think it's the greatest place on earth, and not only do you get a great education on the football field, but you get a great education off of the field, academically and spiritually. And so it changed my life. I know it changed a lot of others' lives, and it's put you, Blaine, in a position where you can do what you're doing. Dave, I don't know if you went to BYU, but if you did, it's put you in that position, and it's put me in a position I'm in. So when you graduate from BYU, people, you come in automatically with a resume. Whether you've deserved it or not, you come in with something that says that I'm an honest, hardworking human being that people can trust. And unless you obliterate that image, it helps you get in the door and maintain jobs, and really, and in my case, in your cases here, put us at a nice level where you can support your family.
Wise Guys viewers from all over the world helping us interview the fourth winningest coach in NFL history, former Cougar Andy Reid, 258 and counting, and 3 Super Bowls and counting. Our Cougar Board question of the week from SJ250. Coach, it's so awesome having you here in Missouri, and we love the firesides you and Tammy have done for the youth. My question is, where do you get your favorite cheeseburger in Kansas City? Speaking of cheeseburgers, I can tell you one of the best cheeseburgers I've ever had was from Guy Fieri at the Super Bowl, this past Super Bowl. Really?
We were practicing at the Raiders facility there, and Guy has a restaurant. He's got a few restaurants out in Las Vegas. That's where he went to UNLV there. So he called me and he said, hey, I want to bring you and your coaches over some cheeseburgers. And I'd never turn a cheeseburger down. So I said, all right, bring them on. So he brought over a bunch of cheeseburger for myself and the coaches. That was like the best cheeseburger I've ever had. I've got to talk to him and see what the recipe was. But the ones here, there's some great ones here. I can't even pick a favorite one, but everybody seems to have a good one, and they all want to share them. So I'm probably eating too many of them.
Kansas City people are always telling me, forget about Texas barbecue. Kansas City is the place for barbecue. Is that true? Is Kansas City barbecue better than Texas?
I'll tell you, I like both places, but Kansas City's got some unbelievable barbecue. It's a little different than Texas's, but it's tremendous.
Hey, we got a question from NFL Hall of Famer Steve Young. And for some reason, I just knew he was going to bring this up because he tells this story all the time. But our fans haven't heard it from all around the world. First he says, who was the better quarterback? Eric Chris Marzik, Jim Kimball, Mark Halgo, or Steve Young? And then he follows this. You can answer it all at once. And he says, also, why did you run the wishbone in a BYU JV football game against UNLV? And then Steve said, it was so hot in Vegas that the tread melted off of his turf shoe.
So he hasn't gotten over a whole lot of that. Yeah. He's got a lot of issues.
Andy called the wishbone. We ran the wishbone. So who was the best quarterback out of that group? He wants to know.
He wants to know.
You know, Steve, he always wants to know.
He kills me. He's making me slam 5 other guys.
I know.
I mean, just the fact that we had all of those guys was something. I mean, to have you and Bosco was unbelievable. So,
so fun.
Yeah, but listen, there was a point where the coaches were thinking about moving him to cornerback, and I was in that meeting, and I was a young guy that just got off his honeymoon, and I said, as seniors, we would there weren't a lot of quarterbacks that we went and watched play on the JV team. So, but he was one of them. I mean, we'd all go over and watch him do his thing, and because he was so good. And I said, that'd be a shame to, move him to a different position when he's that good there. Not that mattered in that meeting at all, but that was...
You were on the right track.
You were on the right track.
What about this wishbone situation he's still trying to overcome?
Blaine knows. Blaine did the same kind of thing.
We did the same
Idaho
thing.
State or wherever it was.
When we went up to Idaho State, we did that, and I ran it. You're right.
Yeah, we had played... we were playing Wyoming and Air Force back to back, so the scout team had to run this thing, and so we just kind of took it up there, and Blaine was phenomenal at it, so we used it and got after him a little bit.
Well, Kelly Smith, I was talking to him the other day, and he said he caught Steve Young's first career touchdown pass on the JV team at UNLV running the wishbone.
Yeah. Kelly was a good one too, from Beaver.
Yeah, that's right.
What a good player he was.
To this day, if I stop and get gas on my way to St. George and Beaver, I always just mention to somebody, hey, any of you guys know who Kelly Smith is? And they're like, Kelly Smith? He's the greatest player that's ever come out of here. He's still a legend in Beaver. It's awesome.
Absolutely. Yeah. He was a good player.
A couple more questions for you, Coach. Reed Arnold wants to know, in your busy schedule, what's your current church calling? Do you have an assignment?
Yeah, I'm a ward missionary is what I am.
Gotcha.
So I get that covers a lot of ground. I try to do plenty in the off season. During the season, I'm stretched just a little bit, and so I'm not able to get out quite as much as I'd like to. But during the off season, I have an opportunity to get around and to different wards and talk and so on. So it's great. The people here are phenomenal. So
I would think
the church is strong here.
I would think, Coach, the only way that you would not get in a door if you went to go knock on it was if it was a Raider fan that wasn't about to let the Chiefs head coach inside. Other than that, I would think in Kansas City you'd have free reign.
Yeah, no, the people here are nice. They're good.
Our good buddy, former player that played for you and good friend Chad Lewis, all-pro tight end, he said this: Andy is widely recognized as the most aggressive play caller in football. Where did that come from, and how has that evolved over the years? He's fearless and confident. Those are two very different ideas. He will go for it on fourth down with the game on the line. He will go for a touchdown with time running out to win the Super Bowl. Where did that foot on the gas mentality come from? That's from our buddy Chad.
Yeah, so listen, you and I came up through a pass game offense, and we trusted it. Like, we trusted it to the utmost. And so the National Football League wasn't that when I got in, and it's evolved into that, but it took time. And so I've got confidence in that, as you have confidence in it, Blaine. So it's that, I think it's that foundation that we know that can be successful. We know that can be an aggressive attitude offense, not only up front, but also with the wide receivers attacking the football, the quarterback making a quick decision, staying on time, making an accurate throw. These are all things that I think, have helped me or allowed me to stay aggressive with that scheme, the pass game scheme.
One of our questions that we want to finish with before Blaine goes at 5 really personal ones.
They're not that personal. They're just fun.
They're just fun. Year 2 of the Big 12 for BYU coming up. What are the keys for the Cougars to have a successful go-round after getting a taste of it last year? What do you think?
Sure, they did a nice job for being their first time in it, and that's a tough conference. And but BYU's a tough group, and Kalani, I think, does a nice job with all that, as do his coaches, and that ends up being an important thing. It's not only important there, but it's also important that they go out and they recruit like they do, and that ends up being good coaching, good players normally help you win games. They've got good schemes in that. They'll just be another year older in it, and here we go. They know what to expect.
Yeah, they had a lot of transfers last year, and people discount the fact that even though a guy's a junior as a transfer, he's a first year in that system. There were 7 starters on BYU's offense last year that were first year in the program. Can just having that whole year under their belt coming back, can that make enough of a difference to win a few more games, do you think?
Yeah, absolutely. Continuity, man. That's those reps. That ends up being very important.
Former Cougar, Kansas City Chiefs head coach Andy Reid on the Wise Guys, presented by Brady Plus. Here come 5 questions from Blaine. These are rapid fire, and we'll finish up with you there. And we said we'd be right around 30-plus minutes, and we got that clock right over your right shoulder, so we've been watching it.
We got to get you out, because we promised.
Let's finish with these 5.
Yeah. We'll start with this. Your favorite sports movie?
Rocky 1.
Rocky
the
1.
Original, running up the steps. I love it.
Did you find Rocky 2 was almost as good as Rocky 1?
Yeah, there were a couple. First 3 of them were decent. I also like Brian's song. That's another good one too.
Yeah, I love it.
That's
a classic.
When you guys were in Philly, did you guys go run up the stairs up to the museum where Rocky ran?
Yeah, my kids did.
Yeah.
I walked, but the kids ran.
When we came back, when we came back to see you and Tammy and stay with Vi and Kayala, we took the kids over there and they all ran those stairs too when we came back that time. So that was fun.
Good stuff.
Okay, your favorite singer or band?
I'll put Kenny Chesney out there.
All right. Your favorite breakfast cereal?
First of all, a lot of people were hoping you were going to say Taylor Swift, just for the record. But we're glad
she's your second.
She's my favorite female singer, and then Kenny's my favorite male singer.
There we go. I love it.
Kenny Chesney let me do his podcast, so he had me be the DJ for an hour. That was interesting.
That's great. That's fun. So, your favorite breakfast cereal?
I like Chex.
Just like the regular, do they have sugar on? They have to have sugar on them.
There's rice Chex, corn Chex.
The honey one. Honey.
Yeah. You were scaring me there for a minute because I thought you were liking like the ones that are just like a bale of hay, only tiny, and you eat them. Like, you can't have that.
No.
Okay, good.
Danny Ainge came in here and said shredded wheat.
Yeah, shredded wheat. We're like frosted.
I like frosted shredded wheat.
See, that's what I said to Danny. I'm like, don't bring that plain old shredded wheat in here.
It's like a bale of hay.
Exactly. Yeah. So
Danny looks good though. So he's all right.
Yeah, he's doing good. So, your favorite BYU moment?
Probably my senior year, that Holiday Bowl against SMU. That was quite a game.
Oh, that was something, wasn't it?
Where were you? What do you remember from that play? From the offensive line, what did you see? What did you feel? What was it?
Yeah, I thought Jim was phenomenal. The guys that stuck out, Vicek Ema stuck out, obviously, for being a young guy and doing the job he did. Clay Brown did a great job in that game. I mean, there were a lot of great events that took place, but I thought just the resilience of Jim and how he handled everything, the pressure during the game. He made all the offensive linemen feel comfortable, the receivers. Everybody was kind of in line. I think he probably made the coaches feel pretty confident.
What did you see? What was your vantage point of that last pass?
My vantage point was from the sideline, and I saw it very clear. And it was a great play. It was a great play all the way around. Great throw, great catch.
You know, Jim and I have talked multiple times, and it always comes around to this where Jim's like, you know, when I was in my prime, if I could have played in one of Andy's offenses, I could have thrown for a bazillion yards, is what he says. And I agree with him. I think he could have thrown for a lot of yards in one of your offenses.
I think he's got a bad foot right now, but bad ankle right now. But up until that happened, I think he still thought he could play. He and I talk all the time. Yeah. He actually came to this down to one of our Super Bowl practices, and I had a chance to introduce him to the team.
He's so awesome. Fun. We love Jimmy Mack. Okay, last question, and we get you out of here. Most important of all, favorite advice from your wife, Tammy?
Oh, boy. It just depends on the day. I mean, she's always got great advice for me. She always says, just be yourself. So that's good advice when you really think about it. Simple, but very good advice.
Well, a lot of people say you and Lavelle have so many similarities, and he was that way too, right? He was just himself all the time.
Andy, I don't know if you remember this last year, we were doing a show and they put a clip on. I was on set, they had to put a clip on, and Andy answered a question, and it literally took me back for a second because I saw Lavelle and your aunt, like I was just like, oh my gosh, that was just like Lavelle answering that question. Everything about it kind of gave me a little bit of chills. So we went to a commercial and I texted Andy, and then Andy, you texted me right back and you said, that's one of the greatest compliments anybody could give me, which I thought was amazing.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Great human being, great man all the way around, great father, great coach. Just had a way with people. Yeah. Phenomenal.
You're going to have Kyle Van Noy coming after your quarterback here in what'll feel like just a few weeks on opening night against the Ravens on NBC. We'll be pulling for you. You're fun to follow. You're fun to cheer for. You're easy to cheer for because of who you are and how you do it, which is first class. And you don't have to be a BYU guy to recognize it. The whole world recognizes it. We congratulate you on that.
I appreciate that.
Well, thanks for being with us, Andy. And please give our love to everybody. Give Tammy a big hug for us. And we love you guys, and we're grateful you'd come on and spend a little bit of time with us.
I'll do it likewise.
Thanks,
you guys
Andy.
Be safe, and the best to you.
The great Andy Reid. How about that? Former punt, pass, and kick champion on our show with his 3 Super Bowl rings. And you know, if he was here in person, he was Zoom because he's back there because the Chiefs have got things going. It'd be the exact same way.
Yeah, I'm telling, like, I'm not kidding. Andy could spin it, throw it.
Yeah.
As good as anybody I have ever seen. And remember, I played with Jim McMahon and Steve Young, and Andy, in terms of arm strength and ability, like, could throw it with any of those guys back in the day. So big old offensive lineman, though.
It's one of our big ones right there.
Yeah, so fun to have Andy on. He's such a good person.
Coming up in a few minutes, Duff Tittle and Brett Pine, authors of the new book, 100 Years of BYU Football, which is available at Deseret Book. They're going to sit down and we're going to take a trip down memory lane. It's going to be a lot of fun.
Yes.
That's in just a couple of moments. Hey, we do want to model our Defense Drinks thing while I read this.
Yeah, let's do this.
Defense Drinks is a drink that does more. In addition to hydration or pre-workout, it helps strengthen your joints, reduce soreness, and is sweetened with allulose so it won't spike your blood sugar or disturb your insulin levels. Save 10% on your order at defensedrinks.com using the promo code WISEGUYS.
And this one right here that I have in front of me is the collagen electrolyte hydration. So this one, just like if you're a little dehydrated, this is good. It has collagen in it. The one in front of Dave, that's the pre-workout one, and it doesn't have a bunch of caffeine in it, but it'll give you a little boost in your workout. And so, yeah, good stuff, these Defense Drinks.
Let's talk a little basketball before we bring our 2 football experts on.
That's right.
Every day you wake up and you go to social media and you go,
something's on.
I know half the world isn't up yet, but something's happened.
Something's happening with basketball. I can tell you that every single time. Let me just check right here.
Yeah, see if there's anything up to the moment. The Cougars signed 6'9" Russian star Yegor Dieman. He made it official last night on his Instagram page that he signed with BYU. This is a kid that's targeted as a top 10 lottery pick in next year's NBA draft, according to ESPN. Next week, Travis Hansen, former Cougar, is going to join us. He played his professional ball over there in Russia, and he'll have a lot to say about this young guy, Yegor, and 6'8", 6'9", guard. We've never really had that before. I mean, this is a lottery pick coming in. We've had some guys be lottery picks going out, but not coming in.
Yeah, it really is quite amazing. And the folks that have been on campus in just this last couple of months, I'm taking a look at BYU, have been phenomenal, high level. And you guys, we're not name names, but you've seen them on social media who's been here. It's incredible who they've been bringing. And from that part of the world, there's a lot of these 6'7", 6'8", 6'9", really skilled players that can come in and are going to be able to contribute in a big way.
Yeah, also Sunday, 6'7" grad transfer Mowat Mag announced he's coming from Rutgers, 9.1 points a game, 3.8 rebounds. Chose the Cougars over Clemson, San Diego State, and USC, and a bunch of others. On the backside of a knee injury, but looked fine last year and ready to go. And he's a defensive guy. If the Aztecs are after him, he plays defense.
You don't go to San Diego State unless you can play defense. Dutch is not going to touch you if you can't lock people down. So he's going to be a great addition to this basketball team. Also, a staff announcement coming out that Will Voigt is going to join Kevin Young's staff as an assistant coach. Last year, he's the head coach in the NBA G League for the Austin Spurs, and most of his extensive experiences come from overseas. So, we've been talking about this pipeline that Kevin's already tapped into from overseas. This just gets enhanced by bringing Will Voigt on the staff. And think Gonzaga and how they built that program into a top 5 program nationally, playing in Final Fours. They did it with some players from Eastern Europe, from players from Australia. So I think it's a great formula for BYU. Get the best kids from around here. They've got this great nucleus of players, and now they're adding some pieces from overseas. This looks like a formula for great success to me.
I heard a comment from Coach Young the other day talking about European players. And for the longest time, BYU didn't have any. And I think you might have to go back to Timo Saralainen for the last one impact player from Europe. But he said, with my experience and what he's done through his career to this point, he goes, if we hear of a kid over in Europe, I can make one phone call and get to him or know who knows him. And it seemed like for the longest time, it's like, hey, why does St. Mary's get all these Australians? Who do they know? Well, they got a guy. They know somebody. How does Gonzaga get all these guys they know a guy? And now BYU knows a guy.
Well,
everyone's got to have a guy.
I think that BYU's got some guys, plural, like with an S. I think they got some guys now over in that part of the world. So it's going to be really, really fun to see how this shakes out.
A couple of scheduling notes. Opening night, by the way, is going to be Tuesday, November 5th against Central Arkansas. That'll be ESPN Plus with Blaine and Spencer and myself. A chance for everyone to see a real game with all these new faces and the returning faces. It's also on election night. I don't know if we've had a game on election night. I don't remember.
Just vote early. Everybody vote early and come to the game, for Pete's sake.
Now you're watching 2 scores. You're watching who's ahead in the presidential race and who's ahead at the Marriott Center. But that's going to be a fun night. And then remember, that Saturday is BYU Utah up in Salt Lake City. So that's a mega week in November for the Cougars. And then there's some more news with the schedule.
Yeah, the Brady Children's Invitational is November 28th through the 29th. That's down in San Diego. It's going to have BYU, North Carolina State, Purdue, and Ole Miss. North Carolina State and Ole Miss are replacing Notre Dame and Arkansas, who were in the original field. The matchups and how that's all going to play out is going to be announced at a later date. But that's a pretty fun field. BYU, North Carolina State, Purdue, who just came off a phenomenal run, and Ole Miss from the SEC.
Do they still have a 7'9" guy, Purdue? Did he move on?
It seems like I don't know if they have a 7'9" guy, but do they always have at least 2 7-footers? It seems like they do.
Seems like they do. They can't possibly have another one, can they? But
not that good.
That would be you know what that is? That's an RPI builder weekend.
Yes, it is.
You play those teams, you beat them, you get a big boost. You lose to them, you don't lose anything.
Yeah.
It's like playing in the Big 12.
Yeah, that's the advantage of playing that kind of schedule. And BYU's not backing away from anybody. So,
all right, let's bring in our next 2 from our green room, the orange couch. Come on in, guys. One sit here, one sit over by Blaine.
You guys choose. I think Brett comes by me and Duff goes by.
While we do all the maneuvering, I'll tell you next week, Carlos Iglesias, Kiba Keita's guardian is going to join us. Travis Hansen and Kemery Martin from the women's basketball team. June 17th, Fraser Bullock will be in studio. So will Jimmer Fredette. We're going for gold that night as with our guests, and that's June 17th. And we'll tell you much more coming up in just a bit. But now we've moved into the library section of the Wise Guys. And our next guests have been connected to BYU football for all of their lives. Duff Tittle, the Senior Assistant Athletic Director for Broadcast Relations at BYU. Brett Pine is the Assistant Athletic Director for Football Strategic Communications. Both are Orem Tigers.
That's big with Dave, by
both
the way.
Both are KOHS alums. This is the night where Steve Garrett's turning in his grave because the three of us are on a global live stream.
Wait, I want to know, like, we're going to talk all about this book, but, like, what numbers are these? Like, is this in the first 10 books? Are we seeing any of the, or is...
Yeah, probably. Yeah, I think so.
That's what I'm talking about right now. That's awesome.
All right, let's dive into this.
Dave got his when his alphabet book.
Yes.
He brought it in the first box he had. He didn't open it, and he opened it in here.
We opened it right on the show.
And I was like, "Ooh, this is the first book. This is the first book."
Yeah, but it's out, and you guys have been working the circuit, and we're glad that you're on the Wise
awesome,
Guys
you guys.
today. So 100 years of BYU football. Let's start with the easiest of all the questions. And we've got some time tonight, so we're really going to dive into this thing, and people are going to want it. I spent the weekend looking at it. I got some questions, but what was the hardest thing, Brett, deciding what goes in or what stays out in a 100-year book?
Oh my gosh, there's so much that goes into everything you're researching and looking at, and it's impossible to tell all the stories. I mean, you don't even scratch the surface, really. I mean, you're dealing with a 100-year period.
Yeah.
So I think it was, I think it's always harder the ones you don't put in sometimes, but we went through a process that took several years, kind of evolving and getting to the point where we got everything that we ended up getting the final.
Now, you guys are longtime friends, but did you get after each other and say, no, this has to go in? Blaine and I were going to notice that we have to ask this question. No, we don't have to ask this question. What was it like working together and making those kind of choices of what gets in such an historic book?
Well, like Brett said, it's a process that's lasted for several years. Before we even started to write, we were coming up with outlines and things that we would do with it. So I think we were pretty good with the outline when we got started, but as you go through the process of writing, you find these stories and you stumble in. During the research, you come up with stuff that's like, we didn't even know. I mean, combined 50 years working with football and athletics, and we found a lot of stuff that, we didn't even know existed. So,
could you have gone like another 100 pages?
Oh, easily.
We could have
just for pictures alone.
Volumes, probably. Yeah. Really.
Well, that's one thing. As you mentioned, pictures. I mean, BYU photo. You have to really, and we tried to acknowledge that in the book and let people really know the great professionals and, I mean, really top of their industry that we have here at BYU, and you don't always understand that. We do because we work with them all the time. But
Good point.
Phenomenal people that are really part of that legacy. The reason why we know what Blaine looked like throwing passes and all these things is because of people like that for years have been providing the kind of art and content and images that you'll see in this book.
What kinds of things are BYU fans going to learn as they go through this book and read this book? What can they look forward to? Give us like a...
I mean, we know we won the national championship.
Yeah,
we got the highest.
We know
one.
96 they were really good, but like what can people expect when they pick this up and start going through it?
Well, what we tried to do was to just not rehash the great moments. Yeah. We wanted to have those great moments be told by those who were there, whether it was a player, coach, administrator, somebody that was involved in it and could share their recollections of what happened. And so I think there's a lot of really cool stories. You may remember the game and you remember the final or score and all that, but what happened in that final drive?
Yeah.
Or what happened in the huddle? Or what was discussed about at halftime or on the sidelines?
Or why anyone would show up in orange uniforms.
Isn't that something?
I was fascinated. I made a note on that because, you every now and then you see a random picture of it and you're like, I don't even know if that's true or not. But in the book, it is true. How did the orange uniforms come about?
Well, that's actually a good question for Duff because he researched that area. But it's kind of crazy because most people think, is it Royal? Is it Navy? What are we? But evidently orange as well.
Yeah, Denver Bronco, orange and blue.
Yeah, what's the inspiration of that? There's a whole big piece on it.
They had a quarterback in the early 40s who was kind of small, and the coach was concerned that he wouldn't be able to see the wide receivers across the line of scrimmage. Of course, those linemen back then were a whole 6'2" and weighed 135.
A 6'2" was a tall guy back then, right?
I know, right? And so he thought, well, we need to have some color so he can see the difference between, remember in the 40s, there wasn't a lot of color in uniforms either. Yeah. There was a lot of bland uniforms. And so that was the idea. Fortunately, it only lasted 2 seasons.
And
they went 2 seasons with orange uniforms.
About a season and a half, and then they quit wearing them.
I've noticed we've never had like a throwback game of bringing the orange ones back. Brett, you're in the strategic department. Are we ever going to see that happen?
The closest we came was probably at Rocky Top, but
the Rocky Top.
That game worked out well, and that's in the book too. But.
One thing I learned that I did not know.
There it is. Oh my goodness! Let's hold this up so people can see that. Look at those babies right here. We can't really zoom in that much.
It's like we're playing Oklahoma State.
You can get the idea. Oh my goodness.
Yeah, that's us in those orange.
That's crazy.
There's also color photography didn't exist back then, so we had to color that image to make it look like what they would have looked like.
Yeah,
that's good enough for me. Me.
All right.
1953, Utah and BYU were playing, and they're playing up in Salt Lake. It happens to be Thanksgiving. How does that game get on NBC?
Well, I tell you what, you think about this, early television, Dave, that's your business.
Yeah. There wasn't even color TV for some years after.
Right. The year before this was the first year that they'd had any national TV games.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So this is the second year, and they're picking
about 10
one game a week, in essence.
Mm-hmm.
And the fact that BYU and Utah were selected from that entire group of possible games across the country to play, and then there were 60 million people that watched the game. Think about that number, Dave.
Yeah,
that's Thanksgiving. That's the power of Thanksgiving.
Crazy though. That's like audiences are too segmented now, unless it's a Super Bowl or national championship game to get that kind of audience. It's nuts.
Yeah, and I really think it really speaks to, over the years, the broadcasting's always been a tremendous part of the legacy of BYU athletics.
Yeah.
And this is an early example of that. We touch on different things in the book that are, whether it's radio broadcasting, television broadcasting, but the fan base that BYU has, the tremendous amount of interest that's out there nationally and for BYU worldwide, really. Yeah. But this kind of speaks to that, because this was really an early opportunity before, people nationally didn't know anything about BYU football in those days. It wasn't a known entity. We weren't winning championships right and left and all that. But BYU's game, 60 million people watched it. And, it's an early beginning of what the brand of BYU football could be, and the notoriety that would come through the success of the program going forward.
Duff Tittle, Brett Pine, our guests on the Wise Guys tonight, presented by Brady Plus. They're the authors of the new book, 100 Years of BYU Football, available now at Deseret Book. We've got the link to where you can go to buy one in our live stream. And for those listening on the podcast, DeseretBook.com.
Yeah,
that's the best place to go. And we're walking down memory lane here. I think we're so into the future and the right now of our generation of it's got to be big and splashy and phenomenal right now. But you can't appreciate where you are until you really understand where you've come from. And the celebration of BYU football now, you can go right back to 1922 with someone who had enough guts to start a football program.
Yeah, really.
And then this journey takes you along the way. What key moments outside of the big ones did you see as turning points in the program that we will read about in this book?
I think one of the big things that we found in the early 1950s, Ernest Wilkinson became the president of BYU. Mm-hmm. At that time, I kind of look back on our history and I think, why could we not win? Why were we kind of the dog every year? And we found that we were really playing on an uneven playing field because of the lack of scholarships in the athletic department at BYU. Where other schools were offering athletic awards, BYU had very few. And eventually, President Wilkinson decided to champion that. And I think when you look at that, 1953, 1954, and then there was a bit of a turning point. Then they built the stadium in the early 60s. And Tommy Hudspeth comes in, he brings in the Marines, and all of a sudden we have some talent. We have the scholarships to go with it.
A wise move to bring in the Marines.
Yeah.
Yes, for sure.
You gotta, if you need something, get the Marines.
Hey, Roger Gillivan on our chat says, not just one great book. I bought my book at Deseret Book in Denver.
Wow.
So there you go. So that's a nice endorsement from our Denver fan base.
That is awesome. We were told
that.
Friday that it's in all Desert Books now. So
fantastic.
you'll be able to pick it up if you have one in your area.
Picking up on Duff's point, when we think of the stadium that you played in, that was expanded, and we've got 60,000+ people that can come watch a live event there. But on that stretch, going from the late 50s into the early 60s, early to mid 60s, right before we won the first conference championship as a program, we had 6 straight losing seasons. But it was in that stretch that President Wilkinson and the BYU leadership determined that they really needed to invest in building a new stadium. On the footprint where the stadium is now, not the same size, obviously, it is now, but the original Cougar Stadium that was built there moved from where now the Richards building is, the stadium that was there.
Right.
But it also speaks to our fan base, if you think about it, because even in the context of 6 straight losing seasons, what was going on is, how do we grow? How do we get better? How do we accommodate the interest that's there from our fans? And you're investing in that, and you see how it explodes, and it sets up, as you get into the Lavelle Edwards era and what happened that came around the corner.
I remember where I was the night they flipped the switch and lights went on at Wrigley, and then it rained out, and they decided that divine intervention, they didn't want lights at Wrigley, but then they lit them up the next night. I was at BYU. I was doing the news on KBYU FM, and I had that on TV because it was historic. But I was reading in this book, the night the lights came on for the first night games at BYU were pretty big deals. There's something about a night game, but that took some work and a lot of effort, and that story's in here.
Yeah, and like you said, with the other things that happened along the way that were kind of historic, it took a leap of faith. You're playing in a stadium that was first built to house about 10,000. It got to 15. They decided, hey, let's throw some lights on it, right? And
why not?
First one in the Rocky Mountain
We've all
region.
thought of that in the backyard. We're playing baseball or basketball. It's like, we need some lights.
That's right. And then to go, okay, we need another stadium. So let's go, not 15, let's go 30, and then you build that one in the early 60s, and then to double it again, just 20 years later is quite amazing. But again, it talks to what Brett said. The Cougar Nation was ready, and they just, give us a chance, give us more space.
I remember on my freshman year, we played in the stadium without the end zones. And then we built those end zones in the off season, expanded to 65,000. We had this big opener against Air Force where we were going to win. And here's the moment I remember from that.
I have my moment too. You sure is.
We have the lead, and we punt the football, and the ball rolls out of bounds inside the 5-yard line. And I'm standing next to Robbie Bosco, and I say this, and so I'm taking the blame for our loss.
You jinxed it?
Because I turned to Robbie and I go, Air Force runs the wishbone. There's no way in the world they're going to drive 99 yards with 2 minutes and something left in the game. And that dang Marty Louthan completed like all but one ball all the way down the field, and they scored, and they beat us in the opener in that new stadium. Yeah. I want everyone out there to know I take full responsibility for that loss. I jinxed us.
I'm glad a little bit better after that, though.
Good thing we didn't interview you before the book.
Yeah. God, we wouldn't want that in there. We wouldn't want that in there. But can you pick? Is it asking too much to say? Are there 4 or 5 biggest moments? I mean, this is 100 years. Can you put your finger on 4 or 5 of the biggest moments in the history of BYU football over these 100 years?
Wow. I think we all have our own perspective on that. That's what's beautiful about this is we talked through this. Brett was like, yeah, but what about this game or that game or this moment? And pretty soon that list that we were trying to keep around 100 became 130. Yeah. And then it's like, and pretty soon you're realizing we're not even going to get to 100 to keep inside the 300 pages that the book is. So.
But there's some big ones, so we want to hear them because there's the national championship, there's the Heisman,
the Miami game.
The Miami game.
Oh yeah, that's one of my greatest memories.
Those 3 are on everybody's list. So what are the others?
Yeah, there's maybe what are 2 others? Well, you can pick 2 different ones.
I'll pick one that might be one Duff would pick, but it's something I think is significant that is not super well known. That it's kind of like anything in life. It's like there's all these things that happen as you go, and the significance of what it is you don't realize so much at the time. Mm-hmm. But you know, a lot of people know this, but not a lot of people, you know that Lavelle was with the staff as a defensive coach for a number of years through the 60s before he became the head coach. But early in his tenure as the head coach, there was actually a meeting that the players, they started the season 1-3. This is in 74. Mm-hmm. And things weren't going well. And there was a players only meeting that took place that really ultimately rallied the team. They finished strong, and they go to the first bowl game, which we're having the 50th year anniversary this year.
Right.
And,
bowl game.
And Lavelle had credited that. He said, you know, if it wasn't for that, maybe I would not been around very long, you know. And it's not a game. It's not anything that it's going to register on a stat sheet or anything, but it's something that probably had a very significant, you know, impact
and
on
that's the
program.
behind the scenes stuff you guys are talking about that people don't know were part of what changed the course of BYU football history.
And it speaks to, Blaine, like you've been in the huddles, you've been in the locker rooms, and it speaks, it's the ownership of the program it's not just a head coach. It's not, and you know, there's players that play and everyone knows their names. There's a lot of players that play and no one knows their names, but they were all part of the program, and the ownership that the players have in that program and their impact on it and their stewardship of it during their tenure, it all kind of evolves and grows and makes it to what it's become.
Gary Scheide, who's in this book, has been on this show, and he said had he not gotten cheap shotted against Oklahoma State, they would have won that field.
That's right.
Yeah,
That's right.
But he was out, and they had an option quarterback back in, and suddenly the passing attack was grounded, and they lose that thing 16-6. But the Cowboys will be here for the first time this fall, and Scheide will be there, and I think he's going to come yell at people. I'm not quite sure what he's going to, but he's still mad about how that all went down in 1970. It was 75. The game.
74.
Or was it New Year's Day? Was it New Year's Day?
No, I think it was right before the New Year's.
Before then.
Yep.
All right, what's yours, Duff? Pick a nugget out.
Oh, you know, there's the first ESPN game or live game on television that Blaine threw the very first pass in.
Yeah.
Blaine made me say that.
No, I didn't.
He told me he'd take me to play golf.
As soon as he went there, I knew where he was going. I was pretty excited about it, actually.
Right. Yeah, and I will mention that Blaine is quoted in the book.
Yes, he is. Yeah.
And so is your father.
Good. Yeah, he should be in there. The Cougar Club's been a big
my picture's
part
in
of
here,
that.
and Duff and Brett probably didn't know my picture's in here.
Yes, it
I
is.
bet we did.
Do we have the Jim McMahon picture?
Oh, the one that's in the elevator and on the wall? No, you just had the team picture from '84, and I'm right in the middle of that baby.
One thing that's so great on every single page, and we'll go back again because you guys talked about it earlier, the guys at BYU Photo are amazing.
Oh,
and every single page in this book are cool pictures, many that no one's ever seen before, but they take you right there into that moment. Here's one where I think Riley's gonna throw that 2-point conversion to win the bowl game. Here's Taysom Hill running up the middle against Hawaii, his first legitimate moment. And you know, pictures are so powerful. And BYU Photo, and you guys, that's a perfect match.
Yeah, we couldn't have done this book without everything that they did to help us out. Jaron Wilkie's the current director over there.
Mark Philbrick was before him.
Mark Philbrick was a legend for sure. You know, and this book is filled with their imagery. There's over 400 photos in the book.
Here's one right here that you'll have to buy the book to appreciate, but that's Jordan Leslie getting tackled, the ball's up in the air before he made that Lynn Swan catch against Texas. Mm-hmm. That picture is awesome. That's great.
We tried to dig deep too, because there's been other books done in the past, and we tried to go way into the archives and see if we could find some things that nobody had ever seen before.
Yeah, it's the kind of book where you sit down and say, I'm going to take a look at this, and an hour later, you're going to be reading and you're going to be looking through pictures, and you're going to say, I got to come back and look at that later. I need to come back and read this story later, because it covers a lot of ground, and the graphics and the pictures are beautiful.
Kevin from Gilbert, Arizona, saying hello. We ran down the big list of folks from all over the globe before you guys got here, before our Andy Reid interview. Andy Reid is, it was great. This night worked out great because Andy Reid's such a big part of what's in this book of history, and he's continuing to make it. But you got guys like Andy Reid that just make everything, just extend everything.
Well, and that speaks to the incredible legacy that, this BYU football program is. I mean, you have a guy that was an offensive lineman and a great team player and a graduate assistant with the program. And I know he talked about Mike Holmgren and the various people that came through the program and how that came about and how some of these early coaches Lavelle brought in to help develop the passing game. Those kinds of stories are in here, and it all is such an incredible part of that legacy. And now you have Andy, who one of the last things we did get in the book before the publishing deadline was the fact that he just won another Super Bowl.
Yeah.
And, he's a Hall of Fame coach and just one of the many people that represent BYU football in such a positive way.
He on the show tonight, he just went and taught or spoke at a offensive line coaching thing in the NFL, and one of his assistants put together his coaching tree. Like, he'd never looked at it, and he goes, "Yeah, there were like 13 guys that were head coaches in this league."
Yeah, amazing.
And like, he didn't even realize it. But that's Andy. He just puts his head down, right? Yeah. But that's Lavelle's legacy as well. Like, you can take Mike Holmgren's coaching tree, you can take Andy Reid's coaching tree, you can take Brian Billick's coaching tree. Yeah. It all comes back to BYU football, and it comes back to this, which is really cool. That's quite a legacy that's spread out throughout football across the country.
We told him if he'd set it up like an Amway operation, he'd have a fortune.
He'd be making
all those guys out working for him.
That's right.
Winning games. So next year, when the 101-year edition comes out of this book, it'll be because it leads you right into the Big 12. And now we got year 2 coming up in the Big 12. So let's step out of the book as we discuss history. And you guys cover the Cougars. You manage the Cougars. You orchestrate how they do things with the media and all of that stuff. So here comes year 2. Vegas says maybe 4.5 wins, which seems terribly low.
We're all like, the players that have come out have been like, no way.
But the first year Big 12 experience is over. What do you expect for year 2?
Well, I expect that we'll be ready and that we'll show our fans that there's a reason why they follow the football program and they enjoy it. Kalani's leadership and Kalani also, contributed to the book as well.
Yeah, he wrote the last chapter, right?
Yeah, Ty Detmer wrote the foreword, and then the afterword is Kalani.
Kalani, yeah.
I didn't even know there was an afterword, but that's what it's called.
Well, if you got Kalani, you let him write it. That's what you do, right?
Absolutely.
It's the word after, yeah. I mean, the guys are excited. As you know, this time of the year is always a lot of optimism. And, it's like working today. We were doing a bunch of interviews for the Deep Blue series that you guys will debut later on BYU television.
We love it.
And there's some fun stories coming there that we'll have. But I think the coaches and the players, they're working hard and excited. And, really you look at this schedule and, it's a pretty tough schedule. We have a lot of teams that we didn't play last year as well. And so there's just a lot of new things and exciting new things that we'll experience, including old things like some of the rivalries that we're going to have again.
Arizona finally come back. We go to
Utah
Tempe.
Back. Yeah.
But 4.5 seems grossly low. I mean, we got a tough home schedule, but they're home games instead of Stillwater on Thanksgiving weekend when it's raining and cold. It's here late at night on a Friday with the place hopping and
when
stuff.
When the fans go bonkers.
Do you think that the Cougs feel like they're way under the radar? We've had a few of the guys on, and it feels that way.
I would say Brett's probably better one to answer that question, but I would say from what I've seen for sure, Brett spends his days with them. And I just noticed that the last couple of games, there was kind of it didn't end the way they wanted it to last year. And I saw how, as we started into this season in spring football, there's been a renewed enthusiasm and effort. It's good to go in and see what you're up against, and realize, hey, we got to get better. And there's things that we know we can do because we've now been through it.
We had Mark Comer on a couple of times, just a couple of weeks ago, most recently, talking about the Royal Blue Collective and the NIL world, which is on the outside of the world you guys are in. But what we haven't asked really, Brett, is how has that impacted your world, this NIL business that's now going on really kind of in this outside the campus bubble? And how do you manage that? How different is it now?
Well, obviously, from years ago, before any of that was taking place, there was a lot of ways that we would help athletes to be able to build their own brand, so to speak, and appearances that they do with people like you guys or other things that we do internally with our own channels or our media platforms, our social media platforms, and everything that we're doing, like the Deep Blue that we were talking about. Now obviously there's an element where there's a lot of things that they're able to do, kind of outside of what we're doing. And so it's really just kind of been a little bit of a dance, is getting used to, what are the steps that we're all trying to hit, and making sure we're still in some sort of unison there. And obviously it's exciting for the players that they get a chance to benefit from some of those things.
Cody Epps was on the show last week talking about his golf tournament, which was Saturday.
Pretty
and
cool.
I understand it was a big success, and guys hadn't been in position to do that. And he put his flyer up, and we showed it, and like 5,000 sponsors. Like, could you find another one to put on that page? And had a good time with it. But you could see that it was NIL as it probably should be, helping a player develop his brand and giving him support to go do that, which will last long after the touchdowns are come.
Well, and I think one of the things too that it does is, and this is something that Coach Satake is always kind of preached, and is part of the culture of his program is that it's serving and it's being out there in the community, and not just it's a more holistic way of looking at how they do things, and that's really an emphasis that he's always had in the program. And so when they're able to do things that brings who they are into a little bit more interaction with the community, that's we've talked about Cougar fans, throughout this evening, just talking through the book and everything that goes on with the growth of the program. But that's an important part of it too, is that these are kids that really are great people, and they really do care about the fans, and they really do want to have that kind of positive interaction with them, and they want to succeed for them as well. Obviously as a player, you want to go win every game, but you also take a lot of pride in representing the school and who you are and the fan base that you represent.
You talk about the Deep Blue program that you guys are involved in. It's interesting how media has really changed over the years as well. And you don't have to go back that far, where from a university's perspective, you were just trying to put players out there and hook up players with media, and you were hoping that the local media would cover them and the national media would cover them. But you have a whole department now that can create original media in-house and get these kids exposure and help them with all of that. That's changed during your lifetime in the business and yours in the business stuff. Yeah. How has that impacted what you guys do, and how has it impacted the athletes to have that internal ability to promote them?
Great question. Yeah, it's really incredible, the opportunities that we have now to do things, and it really makes it so you have to be very strategic in how you're approaching things. And it's not just a matter of, hey, we could do this, but it's like, should we do this or can we do this, and what's the best way to do it? It could be that doing it on our internal platforms is the best way, but it might be that it's not, and so you just have to really look in and, spend time and resources on making sure that your approach to what you're doing is not just something that you're doing, but you're doing it purposefully, and it's strategic, and it's benefiting the program, it's benefiting the university, it's benefiting the kids. Well, and I say kids, there's 250 pounds.
Yeah, they're grown man kids.
Yeah,
right? They're man-child.
Yeah.
That
by the way, I'm old. That's all.
We had to change how we do things on all of our shows, like our game day shows and all that, because Deep Blue's gotten so good. Yeah. And there's so many, like if folks, if you haven't seen some of these, you go on at BYU TV in the archives and you can see them. And these guys help put these all together. The stories are so compelling and so good. We started to go, guys, we just can't show up for the show and say, oh, and by the way, this segment we're putting Deep Blue in, because we're going to come back crying on the air. Mm-hmm. Yeah, we have to be able to preview those so we can mentally prepare ourselves to be able to deal with the emotion and talk about these things. They're that good. They're some of these are really emotional, amazing stories about these kids. And as the fans get to know the kids personally, that's what we like to do with this show. It's a benefit to everybody. It builds the fan base, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's getting to know who they are, what they're all about, why they're unique. I think it's something we try to do even strategically as we're preparing TV networks for games and things. The more they get to know who the people are, the more they're going to talk well of them, the more they're going to understand. I mean, if Blaine throws a pick, instead of it being like, what a boneheaded throw, it's like, I'm sure he'll.
No, he throws those all the time. It's not that big of a deal.
Nobody cares. That's what he does.
I'm sure he'll want that one back because they know who Blaine is. They believe in him, and you know what I'm saying. And but it's really true. I mean, but even beyond what we do, like our external area that deals with our marketing, fan experience, and all that. If you come to a game and you see what the atmosphere is like, there's a lot of people that put a lot of effort into making that a good experience for the fans, and so there's just a lot of good things happening with the program that way.
I think one thing I'd like to add, one of my responsibilities is to work closely with our broadcast partners. And I look back at that, we talked about the first live ESPN game in 1984. To think that we were on early, on ESPN. Yeah. They've been a great partner for years and years and years. Then you look at KSL Radio. We've been there for 70 years. Yeah. And then, of course, in the early 2000s, BYU Television came along, and then BYU Radio. And so when you look at all the communications channels that we have at BYU, it's remarkable. I mean, who else has
no one,
a radio station that's on Sirius? Yeah. And also a television network that's on the two major Dish and Direct, as well as
global.
Yeah, it's
with
global.
An app,
and you can live stream it, and we get emails and things from folks, like we do for the show, but all over the world. Hey, we stayed up into the middle of the night and we watched the game, the basketball game in the Philippines or in South America, or like BYU's fan base is global, and you guys. That's a big responsibility to reach that global audience, but you do it.
Yeah. And we have great partners, because I look at a situation where we go into the Big 12, the conference television package requires us to provide 55 games that are live, right? Well, we've been doing 130, 120 a year. And so there's people over there at BYU Broadcasting like Dave Phillips Jr. that just embraced that, and we just kept running. In fact, we ran faster when we entered the conference, and doing 130 games last year of live sports. It's just remarkable.
I read in the Deseret News the other day that the U, who's been with the Pac-12 network, and now that's gone, and now they're in the Big 12. Now they have to do all that, and they're starting from ground zero, trying to pull that together. Some of our guys have gone up there to show them the way. But when I was reading that, I just thought, BYU TV is so far ahead of the game that in 1 year we kind of became the standard in the league, which is crazy when you think about it. But Kansas is like, what do you mean we got to do all our stuff? Yeah, you got to do everything. Yeah. It's like, well,
we're all spoiled with resources.
We're going to do 3 cameras. Sure. Yeah, well, we can't decide if we want 13 or 10. I'm not quite sure how we're going to.
I'll tell you a little follow-up to that is that my counterpart at the University of Utah called me about 6 months ago and said, what do I do? Yeah. How do I do this? And I had to say, I don't really know, because
we've been doing it for so long.
We have BYU Television. We're just rolling. I tried to help. We've had several conversations. I'm trying to help them with that process. But
just a massive undertaking.
Yeah, I got off the phone and just went, wow, I'm the luckiest guy in the world. Felt like Lou Gehrig.
Duff Tittle, Brett Pine are with us. They're the authors of 100 Years of BYU Football. Before we do 5 questions.
Hey, we got Russ Talbot. Russ Talbot's like, and we got to agree with him here. He goes, because we were picking the big events. You guys pick from behind the scenes. He says, hey, great show, guys. You have to include the 1980 comeback against SMU. And we asked Andy for his favorite BYU moment, Andy Reid. He said the 1980 Holiday Bowl.
That's awesome.
So
I was at the Deacon's Corn party. That was a big party for us.
That one's almost too obvious, right? Is that too obvious?
I mean, that's, in the history of college football, one of the greatest comebacks ever. Yeah. I mean, probably underrated. Like they'll
totally
talk about,
underrated.
They'll talk about Flutie and all that, but
this was bigger.
I mean, if you think about all that had to happen, I mean, even I'll say this, from the fact that we actually, when they got the ball back and Craig James ran like a 40-yard touchdown, it probably helped us because it didn't kill clock.
It was fast.
Got the ball right back.
And I mean, there's so many weird things that had to happen, but that game,
blocked punts, returns for touchdowns on special teams, like it's crazy.
Yeah. The Miami game, the Oklahoma game, there's lots of games.
Yeah, we didn't mention the Oklahoma game. That's one of my all-time favorites.
Oh yeah.
The night,
Nebraska game. I mean, it's just.
And this book has all of that and all the little moments too inside the big moments.
And it's fun to be able to put them in a format like this for the book. And like at work, we have so many great talented people that are helping do things and sharing stories, and who, like Blaine, like you said, who these people are that we're sharing on social media. We're sharing through BYU television, all these different ways. And this project here that Duff and I undertook just allowed us to approach it a little differently, and it's a fun way. Hopefully people will enjoy.
There's a chapter in there actually I'm really proud of that we talk about the history and evolution of television at BYU, and it's fascinating because we were groundbreaking it clear back in the 80s.
Yeah.
So
even when Win Independent and announced the deal with Notre Dame and we have our own TV thing, and people were just like, I guess you could do that if you have all that stuff. Yeah. And then you have to have a friend like ESPN, which helped with scheduling and all that stuff. Before we hit you up with 5 questions, because that's what we do with every guest we have come through here, let me ask you this last question that has more to do with the business of the world we're in today, with social media and reports that go out, tweets that go out, whatever, that are that there's no accountability. So a player's career can be destroyed before he even finds out that it's out there, because there's just so much access. It's so different from when we were at KOHS waiting for records to come in the mail so we could play them.
I miss those days, by the way.
Yeah, those were the glory years. But we couldn't play Rush every song. We had to move along. But how has that changed things and made your lives so much more difficult? We have our show, but we also work at BYU TV, so we're kind of dialed into the same kind of. There are things we won't talk about on this show.
We're really careful
because of what we got going on.
Yeah,
but there's a million other shows that could care less, and they're not tied to the school, so they can say whatever they want. And I came out of the news business. It's just say it, and if it's wrong, you just say, that's wrong. This is the right thing now.
Oh well, we were wrong.
But be first. Be first. That seemed to always matter, and it always bothered me. But we're in this world of everyone trying to be first when it comes to BYU football, BYU baseball, BYU sports in general. You wake up each morning and go, what am I about to find out? Or what's it like now for you guys, which is a total flip-flop of how it used to be?
Well, I think a lot of what you're alluding to really goes into part of our job, too, is that we're helping prepare and train the coaches, the players, the different people that we're servicing and helping to understand the environment and how it is and what it's like, so that hopefully there's some of those, like you described, maybe I won't talk about this or I will talk about that, and so they have a little bit better understanding of some of those things themselves, that on the front side you kind of avoid some of that. But yeah, obviously it's a different world. It's always changing, and part of what we're trying to do is change and adapt, and to always be, ready and doing things that can represent in a positive way. But yeah, there's definitely moments where it's like, okay, here we go. Today's going to be a fun.
I was going to release the schedule, and then someone else did, or they jumped on it and somebody tipped them off from somewhere else, and now you're chasing your tail. Is it taking fun away from the job, or is it just a new challenge?
I think it's a new challenge. The sad thing in it is, like you said, in that desire to be first, whether it's true or not, comes a lot of collateral damage that happens to individuals. And it can never be fixed. Even if they go back and print, or they make changes to the story or whatever, the people that saw it first, it never changes in their mind, and it just continues. So.
In the newspaper, remember those? The newspapers?
Yeah,
the headlines were on the front page. The corrections were inside in the bottom, where it was just like, oh, by the way, guilty, we didn't mean. It was supposed to say not guilty. And then but you're right. You can't, the first impressions are so, but our appetite is for that, right? When we flip through our X feed or whatever, we're looking for, give me a sentence so that I can seem smart to my friends when I say, hey, such and such is leaving. He's in the portal. Or maybe he's not in the portal. Or he went into the portal not because he thought he should be in the portal. Maybe a coach said you should go in the portal. but the spin is completely different depending on the sentence you read on the tweet.
Yeah, I mean, ultimately, I think over time people tend to find sources that they can trust a little bit more than others. And so, I mean, there's going to be some things that are just out there, just like a brush fire that's going to burn out. And maybe when social media first hit, everything was like, oh my gosh, this got said. And now it's a little bit more of like, okay, it got said, but maybe I'll wait and see if that's really.
Yeah, did he really say that, or did he show me the sound bite?
But that's part of what we're trying to do. We're trying to communicate with our fans, and we're trying to help people understand what's going on with the program, and like you alluded to, a lot of times it's not a matter of, it's not something that we're going to share. It's just something that the timing of when it's going to be shared might be, like this book is about 100 years, and there's a lot of things that we're planning and getting ready that fans hopefully will enjoy, that's going to take place this year, that David Almodovar and all the people that work underneath him, we're all kind of working together to try to do some fun things that fans will enjoy, and we'll announce those things as they come up here.
How about that for a tease?
Yeah.
So
anytime something flies over the stadium, we're all for it. Or explodes over the stadium, we're all for that.
We've got 100th year of football, 50th anniversary of the first bowl team, 40th anniversary of the national championship.
This is like anniversary season.
It's a big fun year.
It is. It's going to be a lot of fun, and we've got a lot of things that we're working on that'll, I think the fans are going to love it.
And hopefully it'll give them a better appreciation for just how incredible really this legacy is. I mean, the last 50 years we're top 10 in wins in all of college football. I mean, that's not because we had just one good coach, not because we had one really good quarterback, there's a lot of people that have made that happen over time, and hopefully they'll understand that as they're reading the book.
One of the reasons we got rid of those orange uniforms. Let's be honest.
That's right. That changed the tide.
If you don't learn from history, you tend to repeat everything. We've never rolled those out since. So
probably a good thing.
I think we've learned that. I think they're ready.
Yeah.
Are you ready?
You're both gonna answer. Okay. So I'll throw the question out, and we'll get both of your answers. So, and we do this rapid fire.
We document them too. By the way.
So we compare.
We're getting older. Can we slow it down so it's not so rapid?
Listen,
hey, you're not older than me.
Andy did just fine. You guys are going to be okay.
Yeah, Andy was great. Your favorite sports movie? Brett first.
Oh my goodness.
Ones that we can talk about, or
no? I don't know. There's.
I'm
not sure what to make of that.
Monday night. It is a family show, but we don't have any rules.
I'm going to say Remember the Titans, but I will say I have a one that probably most people don't even know of that my kids love, and it's about cross country. It's called The Overcomer.
The Overcomer.
I was thinking of the one from
with Kevin Costner.
Yeah, in California, the kids that were working, having to go harvest in the morning, and McFarland. Oh, yeah.
But this is called what? Called
Overcomer. It's the same group that did you Facing the Giants? Have you seen that? Which is another sports movie.
Was that Rick Moranis?
No, that's Little Giants.
Those are the Little Giants.
That's Little
Giants.
They
didn't face the Giants. They were.
So I'm giving you a few options.
That's good. I like Remember the Titans, by the way, is the #1 choice on this show over 2 years.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Really?
So what's yours, Steph?
I'm a big baseball guy, so I love Field of Dreams. I think it's awesome. But then there's other things like
if you build it, they will come.
Exactly right. And this is where I'm getting in trouble with Caddyshack, and
it's an American classic.
Bull Durham has some of the greatest actual mound visits in baseball history that are kind of captured.
Jim McMahon used to make me do Bill Murray from Caddyshack in team meetings. It's like, Blaine, do the caddy one. Do the caddy one. Ever tell you about the time I was jockeying for the Dalai Lama himself? Jim would make me do that all the time.
That's awesome.
I love Field of Dreams, though.
Moneyball is another one where now,
movie.
if you're flipping channels and Moneyball's on, you stop. There's not a lot of there's those shows where they had an impact on you. We just stop and go, where are we at in this movie?
Yeah, those are two classics, though. Remember the Titans and Field of Dreams for sure. Okay, your favorite singer or band?
I got a pretty good idea how this one's going to go.
It's going to be in the classic rock realm, right?
Yeah. It's Duff first, and then Brett.
Duff's wheelhouse.
I can't give you just one. I kind of heard the interview with Andy a little bit, and he was giving you.
He only gave us two. He gave famous female and famous male.
Here we go.
He went Kenny Chesney and Taylor Swift.
We had to drag that
first album I ever purchased in 1977, Styx Grand Illusion. And I have been a massive Styx fan. I've probably seen them live 30 times, maybe.
Dennis DeYoung.
I've seen him one time, and they were awesome.
I am a huge Tommy Shaw fan, and I've been backstage with him twice. And the first time it happened, I figured, okay, I guess I can die now.
You're killing yourself if you don't believe it.
I also love Sammy Hagar, the Red Rocker.
Sammy Hagar.
I thought you were going to say Rush right out of the gate.
No, I'm going to Vegas this summer to see Sammy.
Sammy
They're going to play the Van Halen material.
MGM?
Yeah, MGM.
Wait, is he? Where's he coming to?
So he's traveling the country this year with his band, The Circle.
Oh, man.
We've been down to his place.
Yeah, we went to his place in Cabo.
Yeah.
He wasn't there, but
no,
we
but
were.
he does once in a while make an appearance there, and that's
Twice
like
a year.
big night when he comes.
His birthday bash.
I'd go down to Vegas to see Sammy, so I need to get that info.
That's
from
my
him.
number one thing on my bucket list right now is seeing Sammy in Cabo
Oh, yeah.
on his birthday bash.
Brendan and I have seen him there once.
Yeah. Wow.
So,
I'm jealous.
I hate to say it, but I'm going to say Styx as well.
wow.
There's a
But
shock.
it was, it's the same era. And I will say one of the times when Duff saw them backstage, I was with him.
Yep.
And we made up a Jim McMahon jersey because JY, well, the band's from Chicago, basically the original. Yeah. And JY, one of the founding members of the band, is a big
Huge
Jim
Bears
McMahon fan because he's the Bears.
From the Bears.
Yeah.
And he was pretty jazzed about that.
So he asked us if we'd do it, and I did it. And then I went to a show later on.
Was he wearing it on stage?
No, we gave it to him after the show.
Nice.
I held it up in the show, though, so he could see it.
Yeah.
And he pointed at me and just was like,
That's awesome.
A
Styx
couple
is
of
a great,
Styx
great.
guys.
Yep.
All right.
Okay, how about now we start with Brett on this one. Favorite breakfast cereal?
Ooh. Honestly, you're not going to like this, but it's probably Life or Chex.
Andy's was Chex, but he does the honey Chex. So a little sweeter.
That wasn't enough for me on that. You're plain Chex?
And my favorite.
I do regular Life, not Cinnamon Life.
I'm Cinnamon Life.
Okay.
Yeah.
Regular Life.
Do you put sugar on the regular Life?
Sometimes, but usually not.
You just take life.
Can't do it.
Just take it as it comes.
He takes life as it comes. Wow.
Can't do it without
Duff?
sugar on it. I'm going to go with either Cinnamon Toast Crunch or
That's a popular.
Very popular.
Reese's Pieces or whatever they call that thing.
I've never had the Reese's.
Oh, Reese's.
I haven't either.
Whatever it's called.
piece.
It's,
Reese's, it's like
Reese's-
something
Reese's-
puffs.
Reese's Puffs.
something
That's it.
puffs.
Is
Yeah,
it
that's
really
it.
that different
Reese's
from
Puffs.
peanut butter Captain Crunch? I don't know.
It's got chocolate in it. So if you had a chocolate Captain Crunch and a
I
peanut
might-
butter and put them together,
I might go for that. I might
got
have to
it.
try that one.
The three decisions I face each morning is there's a Fruit Loop container, a Captain Crunch container,
And
a
Lucky Charms?
No, Frosted Flakes
Frosted
container.
Flakes.
I'd go there for
And then
sure.
my wife's like, "What are you, 7?" I go, "I'll take the Captain Crunch."
Okay, so this one's a little different than what we've already talked about. What's your favorite year of the 100 years of BYU football? Your favorite year? We'll start with Duff on this one.
My first year at BYU as a full-time employee was 96. And that season is really, really hard to beat.
Yeah.
No offense to the 84 season.
No, none taken. Sark is great.
Let me tell you why. 83 was our senior year in high school. And that following fall, we went to probably 9 games. We went to some road games. You saw the bowl game in 83. And then I went on a mission. And I missed the 84
Oh, you missed
season.
84 and 85.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
Yeah,
right.
it got timing.
83 was
timing.
83 was a great year. People ask me, I'm like, I don't know. 83, we had a ton of talent on that team and lost the opener to Baylor and then won every game after that. That was a pretty special season too.
I mean,
was.
83 may be one of the best teams ever.
I would.
Yeah.
We talked about this when Steve was on the show, when Steve Young was on the show, and that may be arguably that's maybe the most talented team that's ever played.
He still hasn't gotten over the whole Baylor.
Oh, I'm
you bring
sure.
up Baylor, and he's like,
Do we have to talk about that? Can we talk about Missouri?
But the question is, does 84 happen without 83?
Probably
right?
not.
And winning
no.
all those games.
I think we had to come in where, even though we weren't ranked highly, I think it's like, well, they were really good. They were number 7 last year.
Yep.
But
Then
as soon as you won,
as soon as we won, it's like, oh yeah, they're good again.
Yeah.
Yep.
96 is what gives the deep thinker hope because Sark wasn't that great his first year.
Yeah.
And then the second year in the offense,
Lights out.
he was fantastic. Jake, who was here just last week or 2 weeks ago, same thing. His first 4 games weren't great. Lost all 4 of them. Here's year 2 in the offense, goes through spring ball, doesn't throw an interception, which shows something. It
Right.
shows the game slowing down for
and
him.
the beauty
all
for
that
him
stuff.
is Sark came in as a JC transfer and was here 2.
Yeah.
Because you couldn't play 4 games in redshirt. So Jake's got this advantage that he played in 4 games. Now he has 2 seasons left.
Yeah.
He could be really good by the time he's a senior. Really good.
I really do like that analogy because I think what happened after that 95 season is the guys said, we got to get better. I think there's a pure correlation between the 2 years.
Yeah, I love it. Wouldn't that be nice to have another 96? Ooh. What say you, Brett?
boy, this is a really tough one. And it's a little bit of nostalgia for me, and maybe because I was working with the program more, but 2009 is a year that rings for me. We had Dennis and Max and Harvey and
offensive skill positions may be as good as they've ever been, right?
I mean, Austin had just left early for the league too.
Yeah.
And so, but still that group, and we unveiled, there's some stuff in the book about this too, but the Royal uniform again.
Yes.
The Oklahoma game. That was a good group, and
that's a fun year.
And a lot of those guys had been part of a lot of good teams in that era. So.
Yeah,
I'd have to say that's 1A for me.
Glenn Lumen says, I prefer the 79 game with San Diego State. That was epic.
Oh, wow. That was
epic. Glenn's in the Philippines
was
this morning.
and I'm, without going back in the Mark Wilson
three passes, three touchdowns. Yeah. I watched that on television back home in high school. And I was like, "What in the world is going on? This team is crazy."
It was on ABC. I remember they made a big
You
deal
don't realize how good our running backs were in that era, but Homer Jones and
Eric Lane. Wow,
one of those passes from Mark Wilson was like a 75-yard run that was a dump-off pass that the running back just took and just.
And you know who the game announcer was? Al Michaels.
It was Al Michaels on ABC.
Yeah. Wow.
Hey, San Diego State, there's been some great San Diego State games. That game where Marshall Falk and Ty Detmer went 52-52, I broadcast that one. I was exhausted.
Yeah, I'm sure you were. You had
fun.
2009, who do we beat? What bowl game did we play in 9?
That was
Arizona?
No, that was the Win Bowl in I call it the Win Bowl, but it was the Las Vegas Bowl against Oregon State, which at the time it was the two highest ranked teams ever playing that bowl game.
Right.
And we
both top 20 teams.
Didn't we whoop them pretty good?
We rolled them.
Took care of them.
Yeah.
But there was wind gusts. Their punter had a couple of punts that went like 9 yards.
Came back.
We were at that game with the kids because I was a sportscaster down there. And we were bugged because they canceled the helicopter flyover because of the wind.
Can I tell you that?
Like, come on.
Hey, when you read this book, you end up doing exactly what we're doing.
Right.
You just start reminiscing.
Yeah.
But remember this. Do you remember that? I remember this, right?
And that's hopefully what it brings out in people, because everybody's going to have different things that they enjoy.
Sure.
And hopefully we've brought a few things back to people's
it all.
memories.
So.
We hope we told some stories that they've never heard before, because when we did the nearly 100 interviews we did for this book, we heard stories we'd never heard before.
Yeah.
And we were there. You got to go read the Doman one at Lavelle's last game.
Oh, yeah.
Lavelle's final game.
Good stuff in there.
The story that Doman told me, I was there with him, and I didn't know what happened. There's a teaser for you.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm going to read that one. So, okay, now last question, and we'll start with Brad on this one. Your favorite little-known fact about BYU football?
Wow.
Yeah, we only ask good questions, mostly good questions on this show. Sometimes we don't ask
favorite little known.
Yeah, that's in this book. That's
in this book.
Yeah, favorite little known fact from the book. Like, oh, this was a nugget. I'm so happy we have this thing in there. Nobody will know about it.
Well, I'm going to put something in here that doesn't have anything to do necessarily with the football team, but there's at least one family that might like it. But there's something about someone that worked on the sideline chain gang in this book that was working on the sidelines for decades. That, those are people, their family probably knows he did it, but not a lot of other people did. So it was fun to be able to include something like that.
It's Robbie Bosco's in-laws.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, they worked the sidelines for years. Is that it?
It's not, but...
No.
I just was thinking about that. Karen Bosco's family worked the sidelines for years. So
there's a story in there about this thing, but you're not going to tell us what it is.
There's a little mention in there, yeah.
Okay.
That's pretty cool.
But, I mean, I guess he's just trying to say we tried to find little things that might be relevant to people, and one big game that was a big game for other reasons for the program was also a big game because it was the final game for this particular person.
That's fun.
Yeah.
That's fun. Okay, what about you, Duff? Favorite little known?
Well, I would say the Newt Rockne Coaches Clinic at BYU in 1923.
Yeah.
But it was in another book that I wrote 20 years ago, roughly. So there might be a few people that know that one. I think one of the least known games that it was historic and changed everything was 1979 at Texas A&M.
Oh, Mike Lacey catches the go ahead.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And, the fact that Mark Wilson had an appendix and
that's a great story. Do you tell the whole background behind all that? That's a great story.
That's the first KBYU game. I remember it was on Channel 11.
Wow. Interesting.
My dad was the spotter for Jay and whoever it was.
Probably, I'm trying to think in that year, that would have been, gosh, I don't even know who would have done that game because Royce wouldn't have been doing it yet, right?
I don't think so. I'll tell you another thing that I really was a fun chapter is between the last regular season game in '84 and the bowl game. Yeah. There was about a month of just buzz, and I'm sure you remember.
Oh, I remember it well.
Nobody thought we should be, and da-da-da-da. And so we did a whole chapter on the back and forth of media or coaches who were either attacking BYU or supporting BYU.
That's fun stuff.
And there's some fun stuff in that.
It's funny because I remember during the year, as we were working our way up before we were number one, you know how coaches always say, hey, just one game at a time. Our kids don't look at the polls. Come on. Like every week we would win, and then we would just wait, and we'd go, you know who needs to lose this next week? These guys, and these guys need to lose, and we need to kill these guys.
Yeah.
Oh, we were calculating it out all season long, and anybody that tells you that we weren't is lying.
There's a great quote in there from Jim Herman that says, we'd look at it every single week, and sometimes we'd win and watch us fall in the polls and go, I guess we should have beat them by more than 30.
We're going to have to win by 50 next week. Like, we literally were doing that.
So you guys have sent these books to our house, right?
Yeah.
So I was going to have you autograph these for us, but we'll wait and get those.
Yeah, we'll get autographs from you.
These will go back with you. DeseretBook.com, 100 years of BYU football, Duff Tittle and Brett Pine, who we've worked with our whole career. And so we've lived a lot of these moments, but this is an awesome job. I know the Deseret book is thrilled, and you can get it. It's all over social media now. And now it's on the Wise Guys, and it'll be all over this week, too, on our stuff. So thanks for coming.
Thanks so much, guys. Yeah, we appreciate it.
And we apologize if we're pains in the butt, when the games are on, as we're all trying to do our jobs.
That's right.
But we've managed to do this and be friends all these years, and that's not easy in this business.
Well, you've helped us because you're both in the book, so it's like there's content for us by what you guys have done. So it's all good.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Awesome. Okay, DeseretBook.com. Buy it today, and it's a great book. It's a great gift. Christmas is just around the corner, and this isn't going anywhere because it's 100 years. It took 100 years to make.
100 years of BYU football by Duff Tittle and Brett Pine.
Yeah.
Yes.
When you guys do a book signing, let us know.
Yeah.
And so we'll let everybody know. All right. Thanks for coming in.
Thanks for having us on.
Thank you.
It was a lot of fun.
Yep. And in our casual fashion, you guys can just take off. You don't have to hang anymore.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, we just get it.
We don't have commercials. It's just like it's the show's sponsored. Brady Plus just lets us do whatever we want, and then you get to go.
It's awfully nice to have a good sponsor.
Yes, it is.
I'll go put my shoes back on.
Yeah, sorry. Yes, Jack makes us take the shoes off.
No, here's the thing.
Blaine's got a whole thing going on.
I've never worn shoes ever in this show.
Sibby, here, I have white socks.
Nice.
Look at that. Look at those white socks.
I'm not putting my feet up.
No,
here.
I mean,
this is a table of dignity over here.
We'd have to have some people come help us get them down.
It got real informal real fast.
It's very informal. That's what we love about it. Like, we don't get to do everything we do in studios
Blaine
and television.
I put our
is
feet
like
on the table over here. Don't eat over here.
Yeah,
you guys can eat.
And we'd like you guys to come back. We had a ton of basketball questions we didn't get to, but we'll deal with that later.
We'll do that next time.
Okay.
So, all right. Thanks, guys.
And Brad.
Thanks for having us on.
By the way, this sets a personal record of Orem Tigers on the show.
We've never had three on set all at the same time.
Yeah,
it seems like
Harley was he was a Zoom out of Vegas. So
Governor Herbert.
We've had two. We've never had
two. We've never had three.
What about Chad Lewis? He's been on. Right?
He's been on
here,
but we never
not
had
with
three.
somebody else. Okay,
Yeah.
3 is the most ever. I feel a little overwhelmed.
I feel like we should maybe induct Blaine into the club.
I am a big Orem fan.
Yeah.
Like I got a lot of over the years. I think that's probably my favorite group of alums.
Wow.
Orem High.
Just bring Puka
Tiger
or someone
Pride.
else
Tiger
in.
Pride.
Yeah, we'll do it. So
thanks, guys.
Thank you guys.
Thanks for having us on.
You got it. Duff Tittle, Brett Pine. And by the way, let's go over a couple of news and notes while these guys clear out and we finish up. Track and field, the NCAA championships Wednesday through Saturday in Eugene, Oregon. Best of luck. 17 Cougars are qualifying for the
That's right.
For the national titles. And you know what? We usually win a couple.
So, hey, and some fun baseball news this week. Former Cougar pitcher Justin Sterner, he made his Major League Baseball debut Friday night. Allowed 2 hits in 2 innings with 2 strikeouts against the Orioles. Sterner's last season at BYU was in 2020. How about that? Makes his way to the bigs and gets a couple of strikeouts. Really, really fun. And then former Cougar Daniel Schneemann was called up by the Guardians.
Super cool.
Yeah, and he made his big league debut on Sunday in Cleveland against the Nationals. He hit his first big league double on the first pitch he saw and drove in 2 runs. He finished his BYU career in 2018. So 2 guys that finished their careers, made their way through the minors in the same week. they get called up, make their Major League Baseball debuts, and have success.
They're the first to do it since Michael Rucker made his debut with the Cubs in 2021. And so now Rucker's on the injured list with the Phillies. Once he gets back, we'll have 3 Cougars in the show.
So fun. It's been a while. It really has been a while. We've had Michael on the show, and one of my favorite stories ever on the show is Michael Rucker talking about getting up to face Aaron Judge coming out of the bullpen in Yankee Stadium. And if you haven't seen that, go and find Michael Rucker and listen to that story. You'll love it.
Down the stretch we come. June 3rd on this day, 1851, the first baseball uniforms were worn when the New York Knickerbockers wore a uniform of a straw hat, white shirt, and blue long trousers.
What in the world? I can't even picture that. So,
1851.
How about, let's skip all the way to 1965. The first U.S. spacewalk by astronaut Ed White for 23 minutes.
How about the conversation they had before then? So why don't you go out there and see what happens?
Go out. Let's just see.
No one's ever done it. I think that tether will hold.
Yeah.
Why don't you go out there? 23 minutes he's out there walking in space. Hey guys, Robert just ordered the book, so we're helping you sell them on our stream.
Rob just says I just ordered the book. So
1985, Larry King debuts on CNN. Sometimes we feel like Larry King when we say, Houston, hello, Philippines, hello.
That's right.
That's what he did.
2019, Jay-Z is named the world's first billionaire rapper.
I thought you might appreciate that.
Yeah, well, because I'm a rap guy,
Yeah.
but then you combine it with Beyonce's net worth. They're billionaires.
It's a lot of cash.
Yeah, it's a lot of cash.
Paying taxes. June 3rd birthdays, 1904, Charles R. Drew. They're like, what? Who's Charles R. Drew? He pioneered blood plasma research and developed the blood bank concept. Now, where would we be without that?
He saved, I would say, maybe
Countless.
hundreds of millions of lives. I don't know. He certainly saved millions of lives.
Yes.
Let's say that.
So that's why he made our list.
1925, the great actor Tony Curtis.
1961, Peter Vidmar, the gold medal gymnastics guy.
Okay,
Gymnast.
This is like, and my wife right now is not going to hear this because her tennis match started 1 minute ago. Her favorite tennis player in the world, Rafa Nadal, 22 Grand Slam titles, 14 at the French Open. The French Open's going on right now. Yeah. This is his birthday in 1986.
And on this day, in 2004, Amari Whiting, the point guard for the BYU women's basketball team.
And friend of this show.
Friend of this show, been on this show. Happy birthday, Amari, the BYU point guard. And they start their team workouts in a couple weeks.
Yeah.
Men started today.
Yep.
So happy birthday. On June 3rd, one of the notable deaths and of course, they're all notable, especially if you knew him, but a lot of folks knew this guy.
Yeah. 2016,
Muhammad Ali passed away.
74 years of age. Yeah.
I interviewed him in Vegas back in the day, but his health challenge won out in the end. But when he was king of the sport, he was something else.
He was the sport. What a great ambassador. So,
and our Wise Guys inspirational quote of the week is from Muhammad Ali.
And Muhammad said, "If my mind can conceive it, if my heart can believe it, then I can achieve it."
It sounds like something he'd say.
He always had a rhyme. So awesome.
Hey, thanks to Andy Reid, Duff Tittle, and Brett Pine on with us tonight. We had a tremendous show, and I just think it's awesome that first of all, we had a guy on this won 3 Super Bowls, and he's probably going to win a 4th.
I think he's going to win another.
They got that Texas receiver in the draft. That's the one thing they didn't have last year was speed down the field.
Yeah, they're in business. So
anyway,
so glad that Andy would join us and take the time. He's one of the busiest people I know, and he said, "Let's do it." I said, "Pick any week in June." He goes, "Well, let's do the first one." He's the best. We love Andy Reid and love that family.
You can see this interview again, by the way, at ysguys.com. It'll be there forever.
Yep. Duff Tittle and Brett Pine joining us. 100 years of BYU football. The book is out. Deseret News. We have it in the link. We're grateful to them for coming on next week. Carlos Iglesias. That's the guardian of BYU big man Keba Keita.
That's going to be interesting. We're going to bring him on, and we'll explain how Keita got to BYU, but how Keita got to America.
It's a great story.
And the relationship of how this process works. And it'll be even more fascinating. The way they get NIL money, foreign players, is totally different from American players, and we'll explain that.
Yeah,
I think it'll be fascinating.
And Chris Burgess was on the show. Was he last week or the week before?
A couple weeks.
But Chris was talking to us about Keita and the potential that he has to do a lot of great things for this team. So it's going to be really fun. And then former BYU star Travis Hansen and Kemery Martin, one of the newcomers for BYU's women's basketball, all on the show this next week. What a great show. Great.
Our podcast is up tomorrow, and we thank again our new title sponsor, Brady Plus. They're going to be with us for a long, long time, and we hope that we make it worth their while. But we started with Andy Reid, and so we appreciate Brady Plus. They're on the wall. As you notice, we redid the wall.
Yeah,
it's very much
looks great.
Different from last week, but we redid it, moved the logos here. Brady
and you know
Plus
what? Some of the people that were complaining to us are going to be happy now.
Left the
because the U is down in that corner over there, and people were mad at us for them being in a more prominent place.
They thought it was the lighting's not on it anymore, but it's.
Jack did a nice job of kind of concealing the U back there.
Good job, Jack. Great show. Thanks everybody. Have a great week, and we'll see you next Monday.
See you next week.